Art. This is a production of the Society of Local Artists, otherwise known as SOLA. Today we're going to be speaking with two members of SOLA, Joe Decker, a photographer, and Paule Dupuis, a painter. I am the executive director of SOLA, and I've invited them both here to tell us their stories of how their lives have changed their art and how their art has changed their lives. First, we're going to speak with Paule. Paule, now you have a very interesting story. You started out in Canada. You're a French-Canadian woman, artist, and you came here to Silicon Valley because, not because you're a Silicon Valley engineer, your husband is. And you met your husband when you were?
7 years old.
7 years old. And your name was Dubois at that time, and his name was and still is Dupuis.
And when I saw him at 7 years old, I told my mom, I'm going to marry that man. And she said, you're 7. And I said, yeah, I'll wait, but I know I'm going to marry him.
I'm going to marry that boy.
Yeah, well,
that boy.
Because, yes, we arrived in the same little town 2 weeks apart. Both our father came to take over the father's businesses, and we were living in front of each other all our lives.
You mirrored each other so much. Your names are almost identical, except he has a P and you have a B, which are like the yin and yang of each other. So it's just amazing. And he's here in our studio audience today, so he gets to hear his story as well as your story. So now, when you were young, you told me that you had a streak in you that bucked authority. Is that right? Am I remembering that properly?
Yes, very much so.
So tell us a little bit about that and how that formed who you are today.
Well, I don't like to be told what to do and how to do it, first of all. And I didn't like school at all, but I had to go to school. So I did until I did my high school until the end. The last year of high school was pretty rock and roll. And
rock and roll, you mean you were rocking and rolling with the...
kind of. Well, I didn't...
With the Stones and the great...
No. I was not that bad, but I mean...
It was just rocky, you mean Rocky.
I was not a student. That's
you
how
went
we
to
said it.
okay, yeah.
I was not anymore.
I don't think very many artists that were well, Joe might have been. Joe actually is a special case, but most artists I don't think were.
It's because I didn't like school. I didn't like to be confirmed to do things and all the time. I wanted to draw most of the time, and so anyway, I went to college and I lasted there. Well, not a year. And then I called my father and I said, I have to come home because I hate it. I went back home 2 weeks.
And your father was very supportive. He expected that. He said, I'm surprised you lasted that long. So your father was very supportive of you, just as your husband is very supportive of your art career now, which sometimes is a little bit of a problem in art families where one is an artist and the other isn't, and they don't get, I mean, they're married and they don't get it. Like, why can't you just have a regular job like regular people? Because I'm an artist, and it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, I find.
Yeah, but I think Claude is very proud of that, and I think he's living through me, his kind of,
very good.
is part of his art too, because he's very artistic in his way, even if he's an engineer. So for him,
he's a creative engineer.
Very much
But
so.
you've known each other for so long. He knows exactly why you are who you are and how you got there, because he witnessed it and he was with you the whole time. So,
all the time.
So that's it's a wonderful, wonderful partner to have. And so you two went to different schools, even the one that you left.
Yes.
And then you went to another school and you were kicked out of that one because you were still a rabble-rouser.
Yes.
And what did you do to get kicked out of school? I mean, you shut the school down.
For 2 days.
For 2 days. You shut the entire school down.
Yes.
You had a student walk out.
Yes. Because they throw out two, well, our teacher were, oops, I missed one. Our teacher.
You're being a rabble-rouser again. You're hitting the microphone. You're just hitting the authority figures stuff. Don't touch that microphone. Well, I'm going to touch that microphone.
I know.
Okay, so.
We're about to have our exam, last year exam, I mean, and they throw them out because they were lesbian. And they
threw who out?
The two
teachers.
The
2 teachers. Okay, your primary teachers were thrown out.
Yes, and I said, you cannot do that. I mean, we're going to have exam. It's our life too, and you're not supposed to judge people because. Well,
so you are a kid, a big kid, a near-grown adult kid, but you're
I'm 18
telling teachers.
at that time.
Telling teachers, you're telling the
the board of
administration.
direction.
You don't know what you're doing. And I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you how you can run your business and run your school. I'm going to get all the kids to leave school because...
And they did.
You
And
did.
it's, yeah, and then they throw me out, and then I call my father, and I said, well, Dad, I have to come home because I cannot be at school anymore. And he said, no. You're going back there, and you have to go there and finish. You're going to learn that you have to do sometimes things that people are telling you to do and follow the troops. And I said, well, I don't want to. And he said, yes, you have to. And then I went back, and they didn't want me there. And
I
they
bet.
They said, no,
You're a rebel
we'll
rouser.
refund your father for everything, apartment, food, everything, but you're not coming back. But he said, no, she has to finish. You have a contract with her, and you're going to have her there.
So your father gave you a lecture, and your father gave them a lecture.
Yes.
This
And they
is how
had
we're
to
gonna
live
do
with
it.
me, but I was not allowed, well, I had restriction after that, because I was not allowed to talk to people. I was doing my own things, and then so it was kind of boring at the end, but I did it. And
You
I
weren't
was
allowed
finished.
to talk to people.
No, because they were so afraid I would say something and bring
Okay,
people.
so you had a gag order, sort of.
So
Okay, so that's how you ended your college career, and you weren't a fine art student at that point, but you were an artistic venue you were in. You were in a college
Hairdresser.
for hair,
Yes.
yeah, for cosmetics and hair. Okay,
Yes.
so you finished that, and you said, well, obviously I can't work for anybody because they'd tell me what to do. So you opened up your own business.
well, they told me I would never do that, and I said, "Hey, watch me." So I did, and I did that. And for me, it was kind of doing sculpture.
So
because I was
is that the way to get you to do something? To say you're not going to do that. You'll say, oh yeah, watch me.
not all the time, but I don't like to be.
Okay, so you
So-
were sculpting hair.
Yes.
And so you're doing these wild hairdos for people, and they flocked, all the freaks and artists flocked to you because they wanted to have artsy hair
Well,
by the
this was-
beautiful Paule Dupuis, who
It was
had,
a small town.
who
though,
had this
but it was
reputation
very fun.
of being a rabble rouser.
Yes.
And you obviously did things prior to shutting down this school in your short life in this small
Well,
town.
my mom always said that when diplomacy passed when I was born, it missed me
Missed you.
completely.
Yeah.
So
Okay. There-
I have trouble to shut up when I'm supposed to be shutting up. But anyway,
But now here you are, all these years later. You get married to your
sweetheart.
sweetheart, your soulmate, the person whose name was almost the same as yours, who arrived in town at the same time. You saw each other and said, okay, we have to get married. So now you're married and you have a child. And that experience of having another life that you had complete and absolute utter control over changed who you were.
Yeah, I always say that Isabel made me a human because
Gave you diplomacy?
I stopped being so angry about
Angry?
everything, and she showed me to slow down and enjoy everything
Yeah.
and be nice. So I stopped being a witch, and then
Oh, that's nice.
I
Babies like that. Babies like
know.
slower pace. Adults, they like people who are nice and sweet.
And
can't-
since she was born, yeah, I started to paint them.
And you started painting them too. So that
Yes.
opened up a different creativity channel, which was a little more refined.
Yes, and
Yeah.
it's kind of, for me, it was easy to start to do that instead of going to therapy or going to talk to people. For me, it was like a diary. So where I was painting to do that, and it helped me a lot.
Now, you started out in watercolor,
Yes,
and that's very easy. It's a very gentle sort of thing to do. If you think about other cultures, Asians that watercolor, right? It's poetic. It's very
Zen.
refined. It's very Zen-like. We even have some artists in the club who were actually on the show that talked about how they use watercolor to find peace. They had a very hectic AAA sort of personality in life, and they used watercolor to try and find peace. So that fits very well.
yes,
But eventually your children grow up, or they're growing, and they're in school, and they've inherited or they heard from you how school sucks, and they don't
All
want to
the
be
time.
there, and you solve that problem by
going back to school.
going back to school. Okay.
Because Claude always liked school, and I was the other side. But I decided, okay, instead of being always doing work for school, I said I should go back to school and do something. Have a paper too, and show them. That,
Have a paper, you mean diploma?
yes.
A different
and-
kind of diploma.
yeah.
It's like 4-year degree or 5-year degree school. Okay.
Yes, and that would show that it doesn't matter when, but if you want to do it, it can happen. So
Okay. So here you are,
36.
yeah,
I went
twice
back
as
to
old
school.
as the other kids that are.
I know.
You could be their mothers,
That's true.
and you could be the
was.
the older sister of those teachers. So you go back to college, and this time you go in for a fine art degree.
Yes,
And is this the kind of work that's over here on to your right shoulder? This is and over here in front of
Yes.
you to my
Well,
left shoulder. So these two pieces, and we're driving the cameras crazy because they're trying to get both. So whichever one you guys want to look at, you go ahead. And they're similar enough that we can talk about either one. So one is named. The one with the red is called
Reflection of My Summer.
Reflection of My Summer, and the one with the blue and
It's
gray is
Called Pebble Beach.
Pebble Beach. Okay,
Yes.
so they're both very similar genre. And what I when I first met you, I met you by seeing one of these pieces. You applied to a show that Sola put on, our first big show
Yes.
when we first started. And I said, wow, this is an amazing artist. I want to get to know her. And you have this fantastic studio that you opened in San Francisco, and you had this really great art life that you were forming around yourself in San Francisco. And one of the things that you do with this artwork that I want to know if you learned this in this college you went to, or if you developed this later, so you turn the canvas on all 4 sides while you're painting.
Always.
So there's never one way up. You could show it
No.
anyway.
And it's on the floor, on the easel, on the wall, on the floor. I mean, it's
So you
very,
do it 5 ways: on the floor, up.
It's
you turn
very
it around, turn it
physical.
around. Okay.
Yeah, I don't paint, and I paint with large brushes.
Yeah.
And a big oil bar, they call that. So it's
Oil
the
stick.
Oil stick.
Oil stick,
yeah.
uh-huh.
It's the movement. It's
Okay.
struggle, but in the meantime, it's I would say 75% of contemplation, because you go back and you listen to the painting, and that's what I do.
Oh.
Because I start with colors or a word, but I don't have any idea where I'm going.
Well, I want to show
So-
we're running out of time on your segment here, but we need to talk about 2 more things. One, I wanted to show some of your clips of your. We sent 2 pieces in Cherry Blossoms, I think it was.
Yes.
And the other one is called 49 Songs.
48.
48 songs by your favorite photographer, favorite musician. So while they show those on the screen, what I want you to talk about is where your next shows are going to be. You're going to be doing some shows in San Francisco and in Sacramento and in Carmel. You've got a gallery in Carmel.
Yes, I do.
So, and you're painting for these things right now. So you don't know how many paintings you're going to have, but they're all large.
Yes, they
Yes.
are large, and I don't know exactly what's going to be. I don't have a name for my show. The only thing I know is that I need more than, I would say 20.
More than 20.
Yes.
And what's the largest ones are 5 feet by 5 feet?
No, I have 9
feet.
9 feet
Okay.
by 8, 9 feet. Yeah,
And the smallest one is
6 by 6.
6 by 6. That's your
6
smallest.
inches.
6 inches. Oh, you're really tiny, like this big. You got this big.
Yes,
Okay.
because
no, all
for
right.
open studio, I do that too.
Oh,
Because-
okay. So is that on paper?
No.
Okay.
There are canvas or on panel.
Okay.
So
Well, thank you, Paule. It's
Thank you for
been a
having me.
delight, and you'll have to come back and tell us all about this wonderful studio space that you opened up in San Francisco. It's just amazing. It's for other people to rent from too. It's huge. At the end of Mission Street, I think
no,
it is. End of
on
Market?
Bryan Street,
Bryant, the
Bryant
very
and
end.
2nd,
Bryant and Second, yeah.
just under the bridge.
She's remodeled an old warehouse. Okay, thank you very
Well,
much,
thank you
Paule.
for having me.
You're welcome. So now Joe, sitting right to your side here on your right, Joe Decker. Joe Decker, I've known for quite a long time. He was in my gallery, Art 21, and he was there every first Friday, met lots and lots of people there, entertained them with stories of his photography. The one you have on the studio here is from a previous series, but we're going to talk about the new series that you just collected
Above the Arctic Circle.
above the Arctic Circle.
Yeah.
And you went on this fantastic voyage, and I remember when you were putting this stuff together, I was at your studio having you photograph my artwork
Yeah.
for slides.
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
you had this incredible vast equipment that you bought just for this.
The equipment preparation for that was challenging. I was worried both about the temperatures, the length of time we'd be away to store all of the, just the vast amount of images that I'd kept, and then redundancy in a lot of cases.
Yeah, you get 2 of each.
In a lot of cases, we were going to be. There's just no way to airlift replacement cameras into East Greenland. The one settlement we visited in Greenland has about 250 inhabitants. So. And that was at the end of the trip. So I had to have spares of everything important.
Did you need to use the spares?
For the most part, I didn't.
Well, that's good.
But
good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to go through in our short amount of time. We only have like maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes tops. But one of the things that I found absolutely fascinating was the difference that you thought, and I thought too, and I lived near the Arctic Circle over in Alaska, so
you were
had
in Fairbanks,
an idea.
right?
Fairbanks,
yeah,
Fairbanks. Before I came to California, so I had a pretty good idea, but both of us did not know what you were going to experience.
Yeah, I mean, I had done a lot of research, but still there was this intuitive sense that I was going to, despite the time of year, I was going
September.
to, blowing snow on ice. And of course, there was, as you've seen, having reviewed the work, I was just stunned by the variety of textures and colors. I had really no idea that I'd be in a few areas discovering the Arctic's own version of autumn, and that was delightful.
Now I'm going to ask I can't even think of what they're called. I'm going to ask the people the CG to roll in some of your photographs, because we don't have the photographs here. It takes a lot of time to get the photograph the size that's right behind you. It takes a lot of time and money to get something like that.
And we're still prepping for that show.
So we have 6 photos that we can see on the TV while we're talking about it. So at some point, well, here we go. Here's the boat. Here's the boat.
Oh yeah, this was the ship we were it's kind of our home base. You can see the 4 Zodiacs under the crane there, which was used to lift the cranes there. This was sunrise 10-second exposure, and the little streaks of water streaks you saw in the water on either side of the boat were actually pieces of ice over about a 10-second exposure.
I want to talk about that boat a little bit.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that boat because this is amazing. I'm thinking, okay, when you told me you were going there, I thought, okay, you're going to be on these Zodiacs. So you told me about the Zodiacs. So you wanted the stabilizer for your. And I thought he's going to be in the Arctic Ocean and in the North Sea, and it's going to be cold and it's going to be dark. Of course, it wasn't dark.
And that's where most of our shooting happened, from those Zodiacs and occasionally on shore. But we didn't have to live on that, of course.
Yeah, and so these big boats, this was a big boat, and it was a Russian.
It was a converted,
Russian
it had originally been a vessel that I think the Russians had built for them by the Swedes to use for hydrographic research in the polar regions. And then when a lot of the Soviet Union broke up, a lot of those assets were sold off, and those were sold to adventure travel companies and companies that arranged these trips like that.
They sold missiles, they sold submarines. I've heard stories about all sorts of stuff. They're really, really cool, exotic stuff that they sold off for pennies on the dollar. So some people bought these big ships, and they're using them for Arctic and Antarctic trips.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful. I mean, it's not a luxury ship by any means, and it's but it's the hull is ice hardened.
So it can break ice?
It can't actually make it through, say, the Northwest Passage, because it doesn't have like the power to do that. But the hull is this strong.
The hull, and you're not going to get a Titanic accident with this ship.
No, and we also experienced gale on the way back, and it was relatively stable in that. And I thought could take quite a bit more than that without. It's a very stable ship. So.
Okay, well that's good. So you were safe.
Yeah.
And you had a really good cook staff
on
there as well. So you weren't eating
the time on
mix.
ship was actually pretty comfortable. What was difficult was the temperatures when we were out, the very long days, often as early as 4 in the morning through 11 at night.
Wow.
Because it's the Arctic.
You only had 5 hours off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, during the summer, you wouldn't have any time off.
That's
in
true.
a sense. Now, of course, you'd take breaks when you had an opportunity, but in a lot of these places, I knew it wasn't going to be easy
Did you
for me
get
to get
seasick?
back. I wasn't going to pass up on any location. No, I
seasick?
actually did pretty well with the seasickness.
Yeah.
There was a gale on the way back, and I actually deigned to take my seasickness medication there, but no.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So you're on the ship, and you've
Yeah.
got how many crew members?
About 12.
And how many? I don't know. How many other photographers were there?
Maybe I think there were maybe 10 or 12, and then some spouses and friends.
Okay, we've got something going on over here. I'm not sure what's going on. We got some crew people, our own crew here, talking to me about they're pointing and said, "Just tell me what's going on." Oh, okay. Oh, what we're doing is we're having more roll-ins. Okay, that's it. So take a look at this. This is
Yeah.
another photograph of yours.
This
and
is
amazing.
from inside on a kind of a peninsula that heads into a little fjord in the network of fjords in East Greenland. And
Look
you
at
can
that.
see what you're looking at, that foreground orange is actually a ground cover that's birch.
It's a tree.
It's a dwarf
it
Arctic
looks
birch.
like lichen.
It's right.
Oh my God. That's
Just
amazing.
a lot of just beautiful yellows and oranges and reds
So
for
it's
the
a
summer.
tree with fall,
Yeah.
fall foliage.
Yeah, and then you can see some fog on
But
the distant cliffs
Is
and
it
some
like
icebergs.
3 inches
and
tall? Is a tree that's 3 inches tall and,
yeah,
8 feet long?
In many places, it's literally just comes out of the ground and maybe only an inch above the ground because
Like a vine
the
almost.
weight
It's a
of the
tree.
ice and the snow most of the year would crush it if it grew up. So that species
Amazing.
has evolved to
It's
just
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah. So let's bring up another one. I'll take a look. I think we're going to be. Oh, here we go. Now this is the polar bear walking
Yeah,
on some brown, rusty.
Yeah, just the red geology in near Leifty Fjord in
where?
northern. It's
Leifty
one of
Fjord?
it's one of the fjords in northern Svalbard, so
Okay.
about 82 degrees north. One of the farthest north places we shot. That was a particularly difficult shot, in part because it was very late, 10, 11 at night. So it was
Wow.
starting to get dark. It was cloudy. We were in a zodiac. It was cold.
You're in a zodiac. How close were you to the bear?
About 15 yards.
Oh, it's.
It was
Wait.
when it starts kind of doing this ranging
Yeah.
distance. It was a
It-
little
it's-
nerve making, but we had
you
some
had a polar bear
trained.
expert there,
we
right?
had some folks who were expert in polar bear behavior,
Okay.
and some folks with their hands on the accelerator of the Zodiac.
Did you have guns?
There was a fellow with a gun
So you
too,
had
but
a
we
gun
never had
expert.
to use
You had
it.
a polar bear
Yeah.
expert. You had good
Yeah.
cooks. You had people who ran the boat, and then you had other
Right.
photographers.
So all I needed
You
to
were
do
spoiled.
was take this
You were
telephoto lens and actually manage a still photograph of
And did
that.
you have to wear gloves while you're? I mean, how cold was
a
it?
lot of
How
the time,
cold
a
was
lot
it?
of the time, I find it very difficult to work with my. It was usually was somewhere between 0 and 10 below Fahrenheit. It's sometimes a couple degrees above.
Wow.
It's moderate. It often inland would have been colder, but it's moderated by the water.
Here's another one we have here. Here's snowy pinnacles at
Yeah.
dusk. This looks like a Japanese wood print, but it's a photograph that
Yeah,
you took. And tell us about that photograph.
I had known that there was this interesting set of pinnacles down Ufjord, in eastern Greenland, and had also spotted a rising half moon. And so while
Wow.
people went down for dinner, I said, I'm
Uh-uh.
sticking up here. It can't be that much longer. So 3 hours later, 3 hours later, I'm starting
No
to see
food,
this thing come
freezing,
into
starving.
that. The colors were a little less bold than I had originally envisioned, but but the prints from this have turned out just really delicate and, like you said, kind of like a woodblock print.
Yeah,
So I was
it's just
very pleased with the
spectacular.
result.
It looks like it was manufactured.
Yeah,
You couldn't find
and
something
the
like that
technical
naturally.
challenge there was again keeping the camera still, because you can't. A tripod isn't going to work on a shot like that. That was taken from the big ship, but there are vibrations in the ship and it moves around. So while I did have gyro stabilization and some other tools, I mean that was after dark and was taken with a long telephoto lens. So it was kind of a there were some tricks.
yeah. Well, you're very good at this. Oh, here we have another one. Is this? I don't know if we have any more of this.
Last,
exploration.
and it's a little hard to see, but you can see a small Zodiac actually leaving
yeah. So you've got
the big
boats on
ship, the Grigri Mikiev, heading down to the right, and there was just something pure about the beautiful triangular wake coming down into that fjord that really captured the sense of entering some of these areas. A couple of the fjords we entered even as recently as the previous year, had been blocked by glaciers that have retreated due to the changing climate.
Oh, now that is another thing I wanted to touch on.
Yeah.
You went up there because a National Geographic photographer,
Franz Fonting.
and he put this together.
Yeah.
You're into photography. You're
Yeah.
developing your skills. You're gaining your portfolio
Right.
breadth and width, and it's a trip. I mean, literally, it's a trip. And you go there,
Yeah.
and then what happens is that you say, "Oh my God, the global warming issue is something that affects this place, and this
Yeah.
is this."
Well,
Now you're looking at it from a different angle.
I knew that intellectually, but
not
to wonder, to be in this ship at 80 degrees north and not see sea ice, to see these polar bears in landscapes that far north without ice under them, to get into fjords in East Greenland that no one has ever driven a ship into.
Because the ice is retreating.
There's a wonderful sense of exploration, but even though it's anecdotal, it really emotionally brings home a sense of this. Now, while I have a science background, I'm not a climate scientist, and I'm not going to try and. But there's something about connecting with this landscape that really moved to me, really moved me a lot. These places matter. They're beautiful, they're interesting, and there's a lot of immense amounts of plants and wildlife, muxoskin and Arctic hare and polar bears that just form this incredible environment, and I'd like to see that continue.
Yeah, well, we all would.
Yeah.
And thank God you went up there, and thank God that the Russians decided to sell off these wonderful ships and give us everybody an opportunity to go to these places and be safe.
With crossed fingers, this is not going to be my last trip. I'm already starting to try and work out how I can finance my trip to East Greenland, to West Greenland, and to the ice pack.
Onto the ice pack.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Are you going to also try to get down to Antarctica? That's a long
I think
trip.
I would love to, but I think that I have more work to do in Greenland.
Okay, so
still.
not this decade, maybe next.
Give me 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, is there anything else you want to tell us about this? Because I think we've hit on some things that I mean, there's so many things you've got.
Well, there's my upcoming show.
Your upcoming show. All right. So your upcoming show. Okay.
So this is really the first time this work has been shown in public at all.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
but
thank you.
the big premiere is a solo show I'm having at the Pacific Art League, July 27th, 28th, 29th only.
Okay.
Reception 6 to 8 p.m. on the 27th.
Okay, so that's a month from now. So if anybody's watching this in a rerun, this is the year 2007.
2007.
So,
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
But they've, in an unusual move, have allowed me to have their main gallery for a solo show.
Very good.
And
So
I'm going
send
to
out
be doing
invitations to
30-some
everybody?
pieces.
And what's your website? Can we have your website up, please?
Yeah, www.joedecker.net.
joedecker.net.
JOEDECKER.net.
Net, not .com.net.
Yeah, joedecker.com is a sign painter in Kansas or something.
Yeah, I noticed that. I saw that. It's a dreadfully garish website, so let's not even go there. So thank you so much for both of you coming.
Thank you
We're going to
for
be
having
wrapping up.
me.
You're welcome. And we're wrapping up now. And so we've got, this is SOLA, Society of Local Artists, and we do this TV show monthly. And if anybody would like to join SOLA and find out how art can change your life and how your life can be changed by your art, please join us. We have talks every third Thursday at the Pacific Art League, and we have this TV show that we film every fourth Wednesday. And please come to this meeting as part of the studio audience or join SOLA and be part of our group. We'd love to have more artists come and join us. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you too. Thank you. So cheers. Thank you so much for coming tonight.